that record, and here goes this record, and you are good to go.
All right. We are back with Terry and Gary's Low Expectation Cast, and today we are joined by the world's most dangerous man. That's you.
Ken Shamrock.
That's right. I was waiting for you.
At one time known as One Punch, Ken Shamrock, and then I became a mixed martial artist fighter.
Well, hey, thank you for doing our podcast, and Terry and Gary's Low Expectation Podcast. So don't expect much out of us. The questions aren't tough. We're just happy to have people to come on.
No worries. Hey, so there's three of us here.
Yeah. Dave, that runs the Detroit podcast, he just bounces out. Every once in a while, he'll show off his bar that he has.
Yeah.
Right now, he's using his bar.
Yeah, right.
So now you're currently with Impact Wrestling. How long have you been back with Impact Wrestling?
Wow. I guess coming up on October, I believe it's a year. Yeah, a year. Yeah, I actually debuted in Bound for Glory last year.
Yeah, and then it was just such a big thing. When did you decide you wanted to get back into pro wrestling? And did they contact you, or did you contact Impact Wrestling?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny thing, is because I was involved with Battle Championship Wrestling over in Australia. I was a tag team champion with Carlo Cannon. Great guy. In fact, I miss working with him. A tremendous person. The company was a kind of a small one, but it was running shows all the time. And I got an opportunity to go to Australia and work over there. And once I went over there, and I went one time, I thought I'd just give it a shot, see what my body felt like. Because I'd taken, a year or 2 years off from anything. I wasn't doing anything, no training, no nothing, and just rested. And then I started feeling the itch again, started putting some feelers out, and got in touch with Battle Championship Wrestling. And they said, yeah, come on up. We could use you for a match. And so I went up and had a match, and I felt surprisingly really good. Like, wow, like what, I thought I was going to be sore. And as I was training, getting ready for it, I started feeling really good. And then when I had my match, I was doing my first match back after about 2 years. I did a hurricanrana and a dive over the top rope. So I was just like, man, I feel real froggy, And so I started actually putting out more feelers. And I remember what got me in contact with Impact was Brian Cage was talking about some stuff and mentioned something. And I mentioned something back. Well, the world's most dangerous man might be willing to break the cage, break Brian Cage, something to that effect, where we were kind of friendly because I respected what he was doing, and I was definitely watching him, and I thought he was a tremendous for being a big guy in the way that he moved. I was a big fan of that. And so we had some conversations. We talked trash a little bit, and next thing you know, I get something from Scott Deal Morris saying, how would you like to come and check out Impact? And so we started talking, and unfortunately I never got a chance to work with Brian. That's what I thought they were bringing me there for, was to get something with him. But this thing with Moose kind of erupted, where he chimed in, started talking some trash, and I kind of piped back at him saying, who are you? I don't know who you are. Legitimately, it wasn't like I punked or anything, but it came out like that because I don't know who Moose is, right? Well, at the time, I didn't know, right? And so here's this guy chiming in saying he's Mr. Whatever, and I was like, who are you? And I meant nothing by that, but it came off like that. So I ran with it. So next thing I know, I'm in Bound for Glory working against Moose. And what a tremendous athlete Moose is, man. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. Got a few things I think he can work on. And once he gets some of those things down, man, I think he's got a lot of room for growth.
Right. Yeah, I've wrestled Moose before, and it's a treat. But then again, as big as he is, and he's such an athlete, if he wants to, throw you around, he can.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank goodness he's a big athlete like that, because I did the same thing there. My first match in Impact, I did a showstopper and a dive over the top rope, and thank goodness he caught me, because I think I overjumped my spot.
Right. Well, that's another thing. I was watching your match. I want to say about a month and a half ago, and the last pay-per-view we had, and you're doing these dives over the top rope, and you're doing all this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I better step up my game, because he's really making me look bad, and everybody else in the locker room look bad. But yeah, and a lot of people commented on that. It's like, they think, now I heard a lot of good comments. People are like, wow, Shamrock's really, putting it all out there, and when you don't have to, and guys in the locker room, they look up to that. So.
Well, and it's something I think that I've always, tried to challenge myself with, is never being comfortable, never being content. That every time that you have an opportunity to do something, you have to take that opportunity, even if it's something small, because you never know who's watching. You never know what's going to happen the next day because of what you do. And it could be either good or it could be bad. So if you're putting it all out there and you're working hard and trying to do, you're not always going to come out that way. But when you're out there and you're trying to put your best effort out every single time, then you know that something good will happen from that. But if you go out there and you say, well, I just don't feel like working today, not only are you messing yourself up, but there may be that guy or guys or whoever, or girl, whatever it is, that you may hurt in that process, because one day you come in and decide you don't want to do your job. So there's a lot more people affected by how you go into a ring and present yourself. So for me, it's like 100% all the time and nothing less.
Yeah. You hear that, Gary? Gary works for Ford Motor Company, and he dials it in every time he goes into work.
Got to, man. You got to. You got
I
to
joke around with Gary. Gary's a really good dude, man. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of stuff in here in Monroe, So,
right on,
but we
man.
definitely got to get you into one of our shows. And Gary runs it's like Comic-Con over here in Monroe, Michigan, but it's called the Pop Fest. So we definitely got to get you in one of these years and do a signing and stuff. So.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'd love to have it at IWR too.
Yeah.
Wrestling. Yeah, we have a little promotion over here, and Gary really promotes that kind of it. So now, I'll never forget a story you told me. Gary, chime in if you have any questions. You were just breaking in the wrestling business, and I never thought that you. I thought you came in. I never knew you wrestled professionally before shoot fighting and all that. But you were in the locker room with the Ultimate Warrior, and he passed out. I love this story. I could hear it 20 times. And you're looking around like, is anybody like noticing this? Could you tell that story?
I have a couple different stories that, especially when I first broke in, and this was when I was working for Nelson Royal. I was actually carrying the strap for Nelson Royal's company. And so WWF came through town on a house show, and they needed some extras. And so Nelson, put me in touch with them, and so I was driving down to Winston-Salem, and I was going to do a house show for WWF, right? And this is back when I was probably 20, 21 years old. And so I go into this place. It's big, right? There's a lot of people there. I've never been in front of an audience like this, and I'm like, wow. And I'm probably 6-8 months into my learning, right? So I was learning really fast. And so I get there, and I remember I'm in the locker room, and first of all, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going. And everybody's saying, go this way, go that way. And I'm lost. Like, I have no idea, right? So I finally get to the locker room, and there's Arn Anderson, the Anderson brothers, and the Ultimate Warrior, and just all these stars, right? And I'm like, where am I supposed to change at? Because it was like everybody was in there. No, brother, you just go in there. And I'm like, with them. So I walk in, I was in pretty good shape. So I go in there, and I start getting dressed, and so the show starts, and which at the time didn't make sense to me, but now I understand. Well, the show starts and Ultimate Warrior's up first, right? And I'm thinking
Yeah.
he's main event, right? But it's
Right.
a house show, right?
Right.
So he goes out there, and I'm like, and I'm on after him, and I'm like the fourth or fifth match or something, and I'm with this guy named Mega Man, whatever his name was, tremendous body, excellent athlete, but couldn't tell a story to save his life.
Right.
So I'm sitting on the chair, I'm getting dressed, I'm getting going, I hear the crowd pop, and I kid you not, if it's not maybe 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes total, that Ultimate gets up out of his chair, goes to the ring, and he's back in his chair, right? So he literally sprints from the actual entrance into the ring, hits the ropes several times. And I don't see this, right? But I know what he does now, right? And literally beats the guy, boom, jumps out of the ring, sprints back. He runs into the locker room, and literally he's blown up, like, and I'm like, wow. And I'm tying my shoes, ignoring this, like, okay. He sits down on the chair, and he sits there for about 5 or 10 seconds, and he goes to bend over. I thought he was going to tie his shoe or untie his shoe or something like that. And he does this. Boom, literally falls, passes out, falls on the ground. And I'm like, jumped out of my leg. I go, hey, something's wrong. Nobody moves. They're all, and I remember Arn Anderson turns at me. He's literally turns, looks, gets that half smile on his face. Don't worry about it, he's fine. I was like, CPR, somebody, he's dying. And they literally, we just walked around the dude. Like they just act like nothing happened. And all of a sudden he comes to, and I was like, are you okay? And literally he doesn't answer me, right? I go, you okay? And he just goes about doing his thing. And I was like, and now I got to go and do my match. And I'm like, man, this is that just was not normal. Of course now, now, now I know it's probably, that's simple compared to what we see.
And what you had in store for you.
Right, man. I was like, wow.
I like how Ken says back then when he was in shape. Look at this guy.
Yeah, right. Yo. Well, I guess I should say back when I didn't feel any pain.
Yeah, we when we're down there in Nashville doing some tapings for Impact, everybody goes to the gym, and I'll look over at Ken, Gary, and he's curling more weight than I'm squatting, and I'm thinking, man, either I've got to start training at a different hour, or I've got to pick up the beat.
Hey, listen, good days and bad days, man. I have them. Sometimes I can't curl 20. I have to curl 25 pounds because I'm just so sore. So, how it goes, man. You just you're on sometimes where you just feel really good, and then there are some of those months where you just got to back off and relax, just to stay healthy.
Right. So, now, when you took 2 years off, was that with the weights, or you still weight trained?
No, I literally stopped everything. And I didn't, and I think that's what happens. I literally got to experience what a lot of athletes experience, whether it's professional basketball, football, wrestling, boxing, MMA, whatever it is, even with jobs, right? I got to experience what it felt like to walk away or go away from something that you were comfortable and happy doing, and then living a normal life where you stop being who you were, which is I stopped being an athlete. I stopped training. I stopped, looking in the mirror and being proud of what I seen. I stopped doing that. And then inside of me became depressed. I felt miserable. I felt horrible. And luckily for me, I realized what it was. It was because I wasn't being the same person I was born to be. And that was be a person that had pride and took pride in being in shape and fit. And when I walked away from that it was 2 years or so, it just seemed like I became this person that I didn't know. When I did look in the mirror, I didn't know that person. I literally was looking at something that I did not like. And so I changed it. I literally said, you know what? I would rather do things that I love doing and have a short life, or rather than do things because it's going to make me live longer, but I'm going to be unhappy.
Right, right. Now, do you think taking that step back allowed you to take 2 steps forward?
Oh, I think it may allow me to take 20 steps forward because it
Yeah.
was night and day, bro. I mean, from what I felt, because I mean, I think you got to look at it from a point of view, and I did look at this from this way. It was when I started fighting, it was in 1989. I went to Japan, and I started fighting in the UWF. So from 1989 and 90, I was in probably the main event from the time I started my career till the time I ended my career when it came to mixed martial arts. I was the main event, either semi-main event or main event. So I was always fighting the toughest guys, always. That went on for 10, 15 plus years, plus being a pro wrestler and getting slammed and beat up and having, 20 matches in 30 days takes a toll on your body. So I was constantly challenging myself for 20 plus years and never took a break. I never stepped away and said, I'm going to go away for a year. I never did that. I never took anything longer than a month or a couple months off from an injury, but never more than a year. And so I don't think I ever really gave my body a chance to rest and recover. And I think there's some point in time where athletes during their time that they step away, whether not football so much and not basketball because you can't, it moves too fast. But for like pro wrestling and for like combat sports, where it's an individual thing and you have to train to be ready for those things, that it's okay to step back for a while and let your body heal and recover, because when you come back, you're going to be better. And so when I did that for 2.5 years, it wasn't on purpose. It was just because I was so beat up and I couldn't do it anymore. I really lost the will to fight for what I like, what I want. And so for 2 years, I just kind of just stopped, and then came to a point where I just said, I don't like this. And the only way I'm going to change it is if I go and do something about it. So I did. I went out and started training, and started out low. Didn't think about going back in the ring at all. I just thought about just getting me in shape. And then when that happened, I started hearing people say, dude, you look like you could still go. And of course, that planted the bug, and that's where the opportunities come in. I started testing myself, and then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, man, this is night and day compared to what I was used to now. So, and even today, when I'm in there wrestling, I feel energized. I feel good. I feel like I've got a lot left in the tank. And I look at my age and I can't believe that I'm able to continue to have the same mentality and the desire to do what I'm doing right now at my age.
Right. Well, a lot of times, people, they get better as they get older, muscle maturity. Plus, I think taking that step back really allowed you to, like you said, take 20 steps forward. So, yeah. Gary, do you have some questions, Gary?
Yeah. Well, if my internet doesn't stop working, no, I was curious. Did you start off wrestling before you started any of your mixed martial arts, or was that something you did through high school and college or anything, or is that?
Yeah, here's where I think a lot of people have maybe they're not educated enough about me personally, because when I fought Hoist Gracie, there were so many people that didn't understand how come I wasn't able to, the first fight, just go in and beat him, or in the second fight, why I was so cautious at what I was doing. And I think because they look at me as a seasoned veteran. They look at me as this guy that has a lot of experience, which I don't. I fought in tough mans. I won 3 tough mans. That's just being tough. That's not an experienced fighter. I wrestled in high school for 2 years. I did well, I did really well, but that was 2 years of wrestling. Other than that, I did nothing. I had no experience in anything other than street fight. When I fought Hoist Gracie for the first time, I had 2.5 years of experience under my belt, 2.5. So when people looked at me and I was a champion over in Japan and I was beating guys that were, 15 to 20 years of experience, I was doing it through just toughness and being able to learn stuff quickly. But when I fought Hoist, there was a whole nother ball game because then that gi came in, which I never even understood when we went in to do this. I didn't understand that. So I was going in also against something I didn't see. So the second time I fought him, I came in with a game plan. And the game plan was not to overcommit and to do stupid things to get me caught because I wasn't as good as Hoist. Not in the submission style stuff. But as far as athletic ability and just pure determination, I was better than as far as I'm concerned and everything that I have gone into since that time, that my willpower is stronger than anyone's. And so I felt like I had those advantages, but the minute I made a mistake technically because of the gi, I would be in trouble. So I had to make those adjustments to do that. So for me, I think that people having an understanding where I came from, I didn't have professional background. I wasn't an amateur fighter in anything. I wasn't a professional fighter in anything. I jumped right into the pro circuit right from the start, and I learned as I was fighting.
You didn't know what you were getting into as far as like mixed martial arts when you fought Hoist Gracie the first time? It was kind of a, learn on the fly kind of thing?
Yeah, because I did it over in Japan, and I was winning over there, right? So I understood that because I was training with them. But now when you roll in there against a guy who uses a gi as the weapon, right, that negates power. Like I literally had no power over him because he was able to wrap me up with the gi. And I didn't understand that. I just thought it was a guy walking around in pajamas and I just beat the tar out of him. And so here I was going in there with this cocky attitude, and because I had just basically athletically and skill-wise, I was over in Japan doing really well, and I was beating guys that had so much more experience than me, just with pure will and toughness, and also learning as I was going. I learned real quick. I could see something and I could just do it. I literally made a match when I was in a fight one time where I did an actual spinning knee bar on somebody because he tried it on me in the fight and he missed it. I blocked him with just pure strength. And so then I turned around and did it on him because I literally saw it happen in front of me and I did it and I actually got it. So for me, my mind worked really well that way. And that's why I knew that's where I wanted to go because it all came so easy for me. But again, like I said, when you're talking about a gi and you don't understand the gi, it literally, and it's hard for people to understand as strong as I was. Me and Hoist were the same weight. I know they tried to pump it up saying he was 160 pounds or whatever that. He's 1 inch taller than me and his shoulders are wider than mine. So we were 10 pounds within each other. There was not much of a weight difference. So when we were in there, we were the two smallest guys in there and we were the two toughest guys. But Hoist, using that gi, literally eliminated any strength and any athletic ability that I had over him. So in the second fight, I had to come up with a strategy that literally took the abilities that I had and be able to put them in the right places for me to be effective. And that was to basically just stay in his guard, make him attack me, and I'll block and counter him. Because if I was to lead out, I would set myself up to be submitted because I didn't know where I should or shouldn't go.
Right. Now, looking back, Gary, I think you could agree with me. Now, when you guys, there's a big difference between the tough man contests and mixed martial arts and UFC and everything. And it seems like the UFC kind of started out like a tough man thing. But when you and Hoist would get in there and like Severin, you guys it seems like it changed. That was a starting point to what it is now. Do you agree or?
I think that me and Hoist were able to take advantage of the skill sets that we had because we were definitely more skilled in that type of fighting. You talk about Gerard Godot. Me and Hoist wouldn't stand a chance with Gerard in a kickboxing match. We just wouldn't. I mean, he would kill us.
Yeah.
And so because of the type of fighting we were in, we were able to get it to the ground. And because of this knowledge that we had, we were so much better than the rest of them because nobody knew the submission game, and we did. But Hoist had 25 years of experience on me. I had 2.5 years. He had 25 years, plus 50 years with his family behind him. So there was, and of course they ran the tournament. They took my shoes away and all kinds of other stuff that would, even though he still had the advantage, they still were in the rule sets and the way that they were challenging us in these different areas, it was even leaning more in that way. So, but again, like I said, if I was in their shoes and I was putting on a show and I was marketing what I wanted to market, I'd have done the same thing. So it is what it is, you know. We stepped in, we fought, and so I thought what I did was good. Was able to compete and be able to challenge myself, which is what it was all about anyways, is me getting in there and challenge myself to another level and being able to expose the UFC to the fan base out there. And we were able to do that and be able to have what we now have today as the UFC.
Right.
So that make you grow as a fighter then, and change your fighting style, learning more about the gi and the mixed martial arts and the submission holds and all that?
I think the biggest thing it did, and I think this is something that any athlete that has success does, is when you get into a situation where you're basically having a lot of success, right? Your mind can kind of wander into that world of ego and cockiness. And that's where I was going. I mean, I literally felt like there was nobody that could beat me, and then I was letting everybody know it. And so what happened to me was, I think, was a real wake-up call for me when I got choked out by a guy wearing a gi, and I literally told everybody that he was wearing pajamas and made fun of him. And here I'm now, this guy wearing pajamas choking me out with those pajamas. So it woke me up. It was one of those wake-up calls where you're like, okay, I deserve that.
Yeah. Now, but don't you think that adds, when you're talking all that, you know, that adds to the promotional stuff and all that stuff?
Yeah, you know, and it's funny because I still get guys to this day, and I even hear some of them in some of their interviews is like, listen, I'm not much of a talker. I don't need to go in there and make a lot of noise. I'm not a guy that goes out and talks trash. And I just think to myself, I said, you know, that's the reason why when you're done fighting, you'll go quietly into the night, because the people that are going to stand out. I mean, when you think of the UFC back in the early days, you think of Ken Shamrock and Hoist Gracie. You just do. Why? Because we were loud. I was loud. Tito Ortiz, he's loud. You look at today, when you look at today and you ask people anything about the UFC, the first thing comes out of the mouth is Conor McGregor. Even though DC and Stipe just fought.
Yeah.
But Conor McGregor is the most talked about guy. Is it because he's a great fighter? No, because Khabib beat him. But is people talking about Khabib like they're talking about Conor McGregor? No. Conor McGregor gets all these things. He gets to go box people. He gets to go fight whoever he wants to box, makes millions of dollars. Why? Because he's a good guy? No, because they know they can sell tickets, because he knows how to get the audience engaged. And that's the key. It's not about talking trash. It's about getting the audience engaged in your fight.
That should go hand in hand with wrestling too.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of wrestling, now when you went to WWF back then in the 90s, now you went from UFC to we touched on this in the car, I want to say last week or something. You know, you got a lot of slack from the shoot fighters or something, but you're kind of like the first one to go from, you know, mixed martial arts. Well, a lot of people didn't know your past professional wrestling prior to UFC and shoot fighting and martial arts. Now, what type of heat did you get from like everybody in the mixed martial arts world?
Yeah, when I first made the crossover there, I got people from my own gym that started questioning my thought of why I was doing what I was doing. And again, like I said, I'm not that kind of guy that will go out and tell people what my personal business is. You know, that's stuff for me to work out. It's not their problem. You know, I paid for the gym. I paid for the house they lived in. I bought the food they lived in that they ate. So I took care of everything. And the only way I could do that was making sure I had money coming in. So I had to put whatever I was doing on hold in order to be able to follow the dream that I first set out to go get. And that was be an MMA fighter, be in that MMA world, and then also being able to train fighters and be able to have some sort of legacy in that world. And so when I made that change, I made it because it was a financial decision I had to make, because they weren't able to pay me the money that they said they were going to pay me. But I understood it because they were going through a lot of court. They were being pushed out of a lot of different states. They were having issues. And so when I sat down and talked with Bob Meyerowitz and them, I understood where they were coming from. There was no animosity between us. But I also told them, I said, you have to understand my position. I've got 3 children. I've got 12 fighters. I've got 3 houses, one that the fighters are living in, one that the group home kids are living in because we were taking care of, at-risk kids that my father was running the home. And then I had my house. And so I was taking care of all these things, plus the gym where we had a weight training area, we had a matted area, and we had a stand-up area, kickboxing and boxing area. So it was all connected. So I was taking care of all this. My bill each month at this time was $30,000. That's what the bill was just for that. So here I was trying to take care of all this world that these guys were living in, and they were hammering me. They were saying I was going to sell out, that I shouldn't go. And I was like, listen, I'm doing what I got to do. Why I'm doing it is none of your business. You guys focus on what you need to do. I'm not closing the gym. I'm not closing the Lions Den. It will keep going as is. The only thing is that Frank and Jerry Bolender will be running this gym. And then, of course, as I was gone, I had my brother stab me in the back. And then, of course, some other guys who, Jerry Bolin was great, never had a problem with him. But there was a few other guys that Maury Smith being the other one, I brought him for the kickboxing coach. Him and Frank formed an alliance. And they thought that was perfectly fine, that they could form an alliance after I paid for Maurice to come in and train. I paid for Frank to be there and train, took him out of prison, put him in my house, let him live there. And then those guys formed an alliance while I was gone, and then they left and started their own thing, which I don't care about them starting their own gym. He could have came to me and said, dude, I just can't train here. I got to go do my own thing. And I would have said, yeah, no problem, man. We could have stayed at least aligned. But instead, they went behind my back and they took off and left. And so that's the stuff I dealt with when I went to pro wrestling. Even the fans were saying that I was a sellout. Now, if I didn't succeed in the WWF and I would have went there and I would have failed and they would have beat me or jobbed me or whatever they would have done because it wasn't working out,
right,
then I wouldn't be here today. My legacy would not be. So everything hinged on the idea that whatever decision I made, I had to be successful at it because everything else would have fell down. That's the risk I took. And I was able to accomplish and get through that. And now it's acceptable. Now everybody does it. Even DC's talking about coming back, right? So it's almost like the thing to do when you're done fighting in MMA is to go do pro wrestling in the WWF or Impact Wrestling.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like you paved the way. And I remember when you started out, because I was already in wrestling at the time, pro wrestling, and I'm thinking to myself, wow. I'm like, the crossover, I was for it, because you gained so much success. And it was such a win-win situation for WWF, especially they were trying to bring some legitimacy to the wrestling world. They were getting away from those characters like Doink the Clown and all that stuff. And
not on purpose, because if you remember this, when I went there, they already had Hogan, Nash, Hall, Hunter Hearst of all people. They all left and went to WCW.
Right.
So Vince was forced to go in a different direction. And I don't know how people feel about Vince. I have my thoughts on him. We didn't agree eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but Vince was a genius in a lot of different ways. For him to be able to have this kind of success this many years and through all this turbulent time, he was able to always figure something out that would go over with the fans. And he did it in this case where he brought me in with the idea of basically coming in and changing wrestling, like going, let's do something different. Let's put it on the edge. Let's put it on the edge of where reality is. And let's bring in somebody that's a legitimate tough guy in this mixed martial arts world, and let's create characters around him. He didn't do it with me. He basically brought me in and allowed that to filter through with all the other characters like Stone Cold and Bret Hart and some of the other guys. You look at Goldberg. All these characters started developing because of my entrance into the world of pro wrestling. And then all these other tough guys came out.
Yeah, I remember when I went there in 2001, they were going for more realistic names. That's what they were trying to say, And Rhino's always been like a gimp, not a gimmick, but a nickname. That's why I was able to keep that. So I remember because they tried to change it because they were having a hard time with the patent and stuff. So that's why we changed it to a Y over there. So.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah,
I tell you, that's a big plus, brother, because you and I both know it's hard to make a living when you basically built your career on something, and then all of a sudden you got to stop in the middle of it and you got to rebuild that character.
Right, or reinvent yourself, you know,
Right.
and name and all that stuff.
With you coming from wrestling to mixed martial arts, is it a hard transfer to be able? I mean, because like in mixed martial arts, you're there to hurt somebody, you know, you're there to win, and in wrestling, you're kind of there to make it look like you're gonna hurt somebody, but not actually hurt somebody. Is that a hard transfer to do that, or is that something that? Because I mean,
Yeah, it's funny because God rest his soul, but Van Vader would tell you, yeah, he had a hard time transitioning over. He broke my nose. So being Vader, I was very fortunate to work with him in my first match because Vader was used to that kind of style. He was over in Japan and he had done some shoot stuff himself. And so when Vince put me with him, I needed to be able to find that where I was at, like what was acceptable, what wasn't. So me and Vader went in there and we went at it a little bit. And I felt like I could, because I remember he comes up to me, he goes, "Hey brother, don't worry about it, man. You know, let's just go in there. Whatever you do, don't pull back to where it looks not real. We just go after it and we'll work on it afterwards. Don't worry about hurting me. You're not going to hurt me." And I was like, "Man, I appreciate it." And so we went in there and we had a great match. You know, and I was stiff, but at least I had a gauge of like, okay, now I know what it feels like. It's okay. It's like when I was in there training somebody for a fight. I would be in there and spar with them, but I wasn't going to try to hurt them because they got to fight. I can't hurt them. I can't cut them. I can't break their nose. You know, I can't allow them to get hurt. So what do? I've got to throw punches to be able to know that they've been hit, but without actually hitting them. That's like sparring, right? Same when you're grappling, where you put a hold on somebody, you catch and release. It's the same thing in pro wrestling. So when I went with Vader, it was in between that, the sparring and the other stuff, because it was like, I didn't understand. Even though I had done it before, this was at this level, right? Like these were these guys up here and they're big. And so I had to find where that was, what was acceptable wasn't. And being able to go with Vader, I was able to, one, put on a great show, my first outing out. And two, be able to go, okay, what do I need to learn? And be able to have guys like Bret Hart, you know, and even Vader go, listen, if you dial that down about 10 notches, he says, that's going to be perfect. He says, you can go ahead and touch people. He said, but we need to dial it back just a bit. He said, but it was all fine, no problem. He said, but at least now you have something to gauge it with. And so for me, it was really a huge, huge help for me to be able to go in and have a match and not be so concerned about hurting someone. And then I could just go and then be able to be talked to afterwards and say, okay, now if you just back that up about 10 notches, I think that's where you need to be. And then I was able to go in and have another match and I was able to dial it down a little bit and find my range in there. And I was able to gain trust with all the boys. And I think that's the biggest challenge of a locker room is being able to, especially where I came from, is to be able to earn the trust with the guys you're getting in the ring with.
Yeah.
No, you had a long feud with Vader, didn't you? Didn't you guys go back and forth to WWE or WWF and then Japan? And that was
Yeah. Actually, one time we were in Japan and he did a power bomb. I said, he was going to power bomb me twice, like bam and bam. And first time he power bombed me, I was dealing with, because I was on the road, I was working with WWF, and I had a tear in my lung. I didn't know it at the time. It was a tear. And what was happening was I was coughing up blood, right? Every so often I just cough up blood. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Well, then I was in Japan. I literally power bombed me one time, and I started spitting up blood. I started choking, and he was going to power bomb me again, and I kicked him off and said, "Cover me." And so we did whatever he needed to do. You don't even remember how it ended, but he gets the cover, he gets the win. And I remember thinking, I rolled out of the ring, and I get back to the locker room, man, and I'm choking. And so I go to the doctors because I'm coughing up all this blood. And it ends up stopping after about an hour. Well, what was happening is every time I was getting slammed or taking a bump, my lung was tearing a little bit. Each time it was a little bit tear, and it would open up, it would bleed a little bit, and it would close back up. It's like a paper cut, right? It'll bleed a little bit, then it close. Well, that's what was happening with my lung. Well, then when he power bombed me, it ripped open a little bit more, and it started to flood in. and then it closed back up again. But every time that I would breathe or whatever, it opened up again, it would fill up again. So it was slowly not closing as fast. That's why I was choking. So they said I had to, and it was not, there's nothing you can do but just not wrestle for a month or two, because it'll heal back like a paper cut. It'll heal pretty fast, right? But that was scary too, because it very easily, it could have just ripped open. I'd have died, right? So I pushed him off, thank God, because if he gave me another one, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Right. Now, did you ever wrestle for like New Japan or?
Oh, by the way, wrestling's fake, right?
Now, did you wrestle for? A lot of fans don't know if you wrestled for All Japan or New Japan or any professional wrestling companies over there.
Yeah, I work with Baba's group, and I especially when I first went over there, my first experience, and I worked with Doug Furness and Danny Crawford. The Can-Am connection. I learned a lot from those guys. It was a great time. I was over there for, I believe, 6 weeks. It was about 6 weeks, and learned a lot because, like I said, I was only 6 or 8 months at the time. It was the time I was doing the WWF thing. I did 3 house shows for WWF, went over to Japan. This was all within a year of my training. And so I had a real quick jump into the space there. And so it was pretty awesome. And then I had gone back, but then when I went back, I'd actually gone back for shoot style with UWF, and then Fujiwara Gumi when he opened his company, and then of course Pancrase.
Right. Now, see, a lot of people, like when I was a kid, I didn't know wrestling was big over in Japan, until I got older and I got into it. If I would have known that, I would have been trading tapes and stuff like that, because I'm a big fan of that style and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, it's a lot faster, and it's and I hear a lot of people say you don't sell. That's not true. You sell, but it's less frequent.
Right.
Have
That's
you guys
like
fought each other?
Besides Gary,
have you guys fought each other?
Oh no, we've never been in the ring before.
No.
I'm not that dumb, Gary.
Hey, listen, don't let him fool you, man. He's a big dude, man. So his body hits someone, you feel it.
I think
that's why they call him Rhino.
Rhino, yeah. Because he's so delicate.
I paid him to say that, Gary.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think that'd be an awesome main event in Monroe.
Right. Maybe
I
be my tag team partner.
I would be, listen, I think we all know Rhino's credentials, and he's a true professional. One of the good guys in the business, good with people, but he's smart too. So I would enjoy having the opportunity to work with him, no question.
Yeah, that would be fun. Hey, we might have a main event. Hey, we got to get Gary in there.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a fall guy.
Right. There he is. All right, so I know we've taken a lot of your time. I greatly appreciate it.
No
Gary, do you have any other questions, or what can they expect out of the future with Ken, in your future as far as impact, or what else, and, where people can follow you and find you and stuff like that?
Well, I don't know yet with Impact. Like I said, my last experience there was that, it was a little disappointing. I was in there with Sammy, and we had that chance to get the titles, and, man, like you said, when you get to a point where things are working for you and you just don't think about stuff, right? And you just go do it. And that last time when I did that dive over the top rope, it wasn't smooth. It wasn't crisp, I missed it. And so, it definitely cost us, in whatever way you want to say that. But it just, like I said, I think I took some, as everybody knows, I've kind of been away from it for a while. So we'll see what comes next. Next. Like I said, I don't ever like to make any statements or say anything until I have time to really think things over to see what's going to happen. So, right now I think, we'll just see what happens as the landscape starts to open up. We'll see what happens.
Right. I'm still trying to get Heath Slater in there.
Right.
He's a good kid.
Yeah. Listen, everybody has to have an opportunity. You know, we all got kids. We all got kids. And we all got to feed them.
I want to know what your plans are with Valor moving forward.
Yeah, that's good too, because I say this all the time when people
tell people what that is if they don't know. Actually.
Yeah, Valor's a bare knuckle competition where it's basically, if I can just explain it to, if you were to watch a boxing match, take the gloves off, take the tape off, and that's Valor bare knuckle. Our rules are the same. Everything is the same. We don't have as many rounds because with bare knuckle, you're not going to go 12 rounds, right? So we go 3 rounds with 3 minutes, and it's exciting. It's fast. It's an organization and a thought I came up with for the love of bare knuckle. I've always believed bare knuckle is in its purest form. And I always kind of like to have people understand what it is to have no gloves and gloves on. And the way I do that is I say, people look at boxing and they go, man, those guys are really good. And I will say, yeah, you know, and they'll say Pacquiao's better than Mayweather. And I'll say, well, you know, the record doesn't show that, but I get what you're saying. But here's the thing. If you really want to find out whether a guy is a true badass or a fighter, take the gloves off. Because if you're great with gloves on, do you truly walk around in the streets with boxing gloves on? I mean, could Mayweather be tough on the street? I've never seen him get into a street fight. You know, I've never seen him actually have a problem there and actually fight somebody. It's always in a controlled area with boxing gloves on. But if you were to take boxing gloves off, would people be as good as they are? Even MMA. There was a reason why MMA back in the early days where there was very few people that fought in it. It wasn't because they didn't have people wanting to do it. They had people not wanting to do it. You didn't have boxers come and say, I'll fight, or wrestlers or judo players or all these other guys that were in this combative thing go, I'll fight. No, because it was always open and we were looking for the highest level of caliber of fighters. But none of them were volunteering. There's a reason for that. Because bare knuckle is a different world and it's a different beast. I believe bare knuckle is where you find out who the truest warriors are, the truest badasses are, because they won't think twice about doing it because they don't need anything to make them good. They are good with God-given talent. That's all they need. That's all they want. So Valor bare knuckle to me is God-given talent, and I think is in my opinion, my humble opinion, is the next big combat sports coming down.
Sign me and Terry up.
Sign Gary up.
We're gonna have to let you go. It's been awesome. I'm honored to have you on. Thanks, Terry, for setting that up. It's just
well. Thanks, Ken, for coming on. Where can people find you at on social media?
Yeah, you can find me on kenshamrock.com, and I have all my social media sites on there. So if you go to my website, you can reach me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. If they're all on there, and also too, we have all our updates on Valor BK. Also too, if people want to get in contact with me and bring me in for something like that, you can also find that also on my website, kenshamrock.com. Nice.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Thanks for helping us out. Thanks for coming on the show. It was great. I could talk to you for another 2 hours.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you, man. Appreciate
we'll see you at Bound for Glory, if not sooner.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
This episode can be found on Facebook, and then we're going to be on YouTube. And pretty soon it should be uploaded on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Impact Radio. So check it out. Subscribe. This week's episode was from Deck Burners. Is buying Magic the Gathering and sealed boxes. Deck Burners will also purchase collections of comics, Dungeons and Dragons, and other RPGs, as well as coins, gold, and silver. Deck Burners is located at 5071 North Dixie Highway, Suite 7, Newport, Michigan, inside Supermatch Gun Shop. They are open 7 days a week, and you can contact them by phone 734-384-3806 or email them at blix70@charter.net. Still there, Terry?
Yeah, still there.
All right. I thought you were leaving me.
Oh no, I thought we were done, and then that was a great interview, man. He's a class act guy, man.
Yeah, just the people. I mean, Hoist Gracie, Tito Ortiz, on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
Seriously, to get you and him.
the crazy thing about it is he runs around that locker room and you see him in the ring and stuff. You think he's 25. I'm walking around.
He looks 25. You see those guns?
Yeah,
but we're still alive, so we just want to tell everybody thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. And have Dave sign us off.
Yeah, there's Dave. Where's Dave?
Where's Dave? Sign us off,
here.
Dave.
Oh, there you go.
I was listening to you guys finish your wrap-up talk.
We're wrapped. It's up.
All right, well then let me. There goes that.